Hey everyone, Autograph here, and today we're going to be talking about Pain to Power, the debut album by Maruja. So, Maruja's been gaining a lot of momentum and tempo over the last several EP drops. They're a band that's existed for nearly a decade at this point, as far as a recording standpoint goes. And their latest project, which was just a single track that was featured and worked on for the Quadeca album, was truly exciting and a high point, if not the best point on that album altogether. So, needless to say, this album's been very anticipated for me. There is a very powerful instrumental regard to this album and this band in general, especially their feverish electric guitar and saxophone play. Joe Carroll, who's responsible for the sax and the vocals, has a very captivating appeal to his spoken and sometimes scream vocals across the album. It's very reminiscent of like a new age adaptation of Rage Against the Machine. This album is definitely a quality versus quantity album where you only have 8 tracks, but they're so jam packed with ideas and adaptations that the runtime ends up hitting 50 minutes. Several of these tracks etching towards or even exceeding 10 minutes in length. But I have to say, what this band is doing in regards to the saxophone is truly groundbreaking. There are plenty of examples in especially modern rock music of the saxophone kind of making its way into the scene, but Maruja's truly found a way to unlock the power and the grit of the sax in a very new and exciting way. It's truly breathtaking, for lack of a better phrase, and yet at the same time, they're able to juxtapose the traditional smooth vibe that the saxophone can provide as well. It's never misemployed across this album, and it is so exciting to hear this instrument presented in such a fascinating and truly gritty new light that is just awe-inspiring, truly. And it's not just the sax, the musicality of this band is just legendary. There are many instrumental breaks across the track list, and they are truly so riveting and engaging that I actually found myself on re listens looking forward to the instrumental breaks. And this is coming from a guy who has traditionally always been vocals first. This band just hits different with their orchestration, their mixing, and truly their musical philosophy. In terms of tracks to talk on, this album, every single one of the 8 has great talking points to be provided. I like to narrow it down to 3. So the first of the 3 to really hone in on for me is Look Down on Us, which was the debut single for the album's release cycle and a very exciting piece in general. This is a multi-phase track and truly at its core is a very powerful metal anthem. Very reminiscent in a lot of ways, as I mentioned before, to Rage Against the Machine. You have these extreme guitar and saxophone chords that mosh to this very powerful pitch of feverish drums and the constant chug of the bass. Saxophone has a very intense role, and especially in its solo segment, it seemingly replaces the traditional role of the electric guitar in a way that is very Tom Morello esque and highlights the grit that this instrument is capable of producing. For the instrumental segment that follows this, you transition from this metal slammer into smooth jazz, which is really exciting. And as that kind of initiates, you get the power of the track ramping up as Joe vocally and lyrically encourages listeners not to lose faith, instead, to embrace the concept of love. The track is very focused on this idea of the higher powers looking down on those beneath and the feeling of powerlessness and dread that is accompanied with that. And then to juxtapose that, the idea that people at the bottom can be unified together through this idea of love and push back is truly a powerful idea and is played across really well as far as the instrumentation goes. It's just extraordinary. Each piece and phase of this track is truly meaningful and it ramps up so significantly as a result of all of the orchestration and instrumentation. This is easily one of my favorite tracks to come out this year. With Born to Die, I think what you have is the true definition and encapsulation of a slow build into just a powerful eruption of genius orchestration. This is a progression track where all of the elements are brought in slowly. You open up with just drums, and then it opens up into saxophone, which really plays the role of the omen in this track, the harbinger of sonic development and a foreshadowing of progression and noise and explosion as this track develops. Here, Joe is exploring the idea of existential dread lyrically as you drift through this very viscous sea of ambient guitar, slowly escalating snare drums and keyboard tones that set a very ominous pitch. The pace eventually picks up at the center of the track as the sax starts just crooning at this feverish speed, very reminiscent of electric guitar. And everything is building, building, building. And then you hit this hush as Joe riffs off, avoiding every trigger while still reaching for ascension. The definition of the human condition, avoiding problems as you reach higher, avoiding suffering as you reach for more. And then eruption. The drums slam, the guitar rips across the mix. It joins the saxophone in this symphony of rebellion. Tom Morello's style guitar screeches literally in his likeness rip this track to shreds. Every instrument just roars off in this final farewell before it all fades into this peaceful, quiet, dense ambience. This track truly, in a lot of regards, reminds me of a tornado. It is absolutely unforgettable. It's raw, it's emotional, and it is just amazing. Finally, talking about Break the Tension, which is truly this emotional, just banger track. The drums are just to die for, and they're racing basically straight away. You have electric guitar that has some true sizzle as a complement to the unforgettable saxophone riffing that is just otherworldly. The chorus instrumentation is just so tense and smoggy with this inevitable eruption that is clearly going to take place. A common theme amongst these tracks on Painted Power. The second verse has just this example of extraordinary decision making when it comes to orchestration. They pull all the layers away for a couple bars and just let the drums go with it, and then they slowly re-add them back in between the guitar, the saxophone, the bass, everything. And then the last 30 seconds of the track, you get your payoff with this eruption that is just so potent with gusto. It's addictive. I find myself coming back to this track again and again just to experience the like raw emotional output that this song has to offer. And of course, across all of this, Joe's vocals are so impressive, truly complementing the mix in the best ways. And this is such a powerful, masterful track. And that's just the theme that I say again and again and again as I look at all 8 of these tracks. It's just this album is otherworldly, it's engaging, it's connecting, it's emotional. It has all the elements of a completely and truly unforgettable project, which is why when I think about the baseless rating for Pain to Power, I would have to say that it's a masterpiece.